Good evening, everyone. My name is Rosie Goldsmith, and thank you so much to Walter Grond, always for his very generous words, and thank you to him for creating this festival, which is somewhere that all these amazing writers can shine and show off. I'm sure you won't do that. But anyway, it's a great pleasure for me to be hosting these two events, one after another, with Pajtim Statovci and with Claire Clark. I'm going to give you a short introduction to Pajtim, and then we'll get on to talking about the books, and we'll have a reading as well. Pajtim was born in Kosovo to Albanian parents in 1990. Now, normally I don't like to give people's ages away or to even place great attention on dates and so on, but this particular date is really, really important because it was the year before the wars in Yugoslavia began, and in fact, the wars in Yugoslavia and Kosovo and the rest of the whole region very much formed Pajtim's life, and in fact, his literature as well. So, as you know, another decade went on. Yugoslav wars pitted several ethnic groups, one against another, and Pajtim's family fled to Finland when he was just 2 years old. So he's lived and studied and written in Finland ever since, writing in Finnish and winning several major awards for his brilliant fiction. And I've read his 4 novels, so I do know for a fact that he is a really brilliant writer. These are all stories of exile, of immigration, of love, of homosexuality, of nationality, of identity, of reality, and fantasy, which brings us to our topic very much. The first novel, which is this one, was published in 2014, and it's now in German, as you can see. I think you've got 3 novels in German?
Yes.
That's pretty good going for 4 novels. You've written 4, you've got 3 in German.
Yeah, I think the 4th one is coming in the German language. I believe it's next year.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And the 4th one will be coming in English too next year.
Yes.
So there'll be a double celebration in both countries. Yay.
Yes.
So that was 2014, but we're going to talk mainly about this novel actually, but I see them all as one great Lebenswerk that Pajtim has been writing possibly all his life. So the second novel, in fact that one was also on stage, wasn't it? There was a play made of it. And his second novel, Crossing, was a finalist for the US National Book Award, and his novel Bolla, which was the 3rd one, was awarded Finland's highest literary award, which is the Finlandia Award. And in fact, you've won that twice, I think. Honestly, I'm very greedy, all these prizes.
Well, thank you. I mean, I should have you on my ear all the time, listing all these accolades.
Yes.
Because
I thought, flatter the writer before you interview them. Then honestly, you can get away with anything. But you have done pretty well. So there we go. And the 4th one is called A Cow Gives Birth at Night. Yeah, I mean the titles. Anyway, we won't talk necessarily about the titles because that's another whole story. Let's go to My Cat Yugoslavia. Let's talk about the title of this event, which is Fabulous Reality. Fabelhafte Wirklichkeit, I think they're calling it in German. Can you remember why you decided to feature a cat as one of your protagonists? How did this story come about? Because you were very young when you wrote it.
I think it was... I'm a very impulsive writer, and it's very difficult for me to in retrospect, to even remember what the initial ignition even was. I mean, I'm a very dissociative writer too, in a way, because I feel like when I'm in the middle of my artistic work, some other presence than this presence that's on this stage right now stops existing, and another entity takes over me. And
so this is not the real you. This is our theme.
You caught
I caught you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I do remember, throughout my life, I've suffered from internalized racism, internalized hate. I've always felt less seen, less capable, less talented growing up in Finland, less worthy than my Finnish-speaking or Swedish-speaking peers at school. And because of my background, because of the Kosovo War, because my ethnicity was always associated with the Yugoslav wars, the restlessness, the violence, I always felt that they made me, in a way, respond to questions that were really difficult and that made me a representative of a certain kind of world. And because I'm not an immigrant who moved to Finland from, let's say, Germany, and that would have been a different thing, because then your past, your nationality is associated with entirely different things than when someone comes to Finland from a country like Kosovo. And I want to add in the introduction that you made about me that I'm Finland's first and so far only writer who was born in a Serbian-speaking city in Kosovo, moved to Finland in a Swedish-speaking city, who writes in the Finnish language.
I think we should applaud that. That's pretty amazing. But so, I couldn't fit that on my page.
Yeah.
That was too long. That was too long.
But I wanted, the cat in this story is the premise of the story is that there's this very lonely, very depressed protagonist in the beginning of the novel, and he feels very secluded in his community.
Bekim.
Yeah.
So you've got almost three protagonists. You've got the cat, who is basically an anthropomorphized cat, and then you've got Bekim and his mother, Emine.
And Bekim and Emine are both narrators of the novel, and so Bekim in the beginning of the novel doesn't feel like he has any meaning, so he goes one night into this gay bar in Helsinki, and there he meets this human-like, racist, fat-shaming, abusive, homophobic cat. And
they become friends.
You
Hard to believe. Not really.
I hate when that happens. If I had a nickel every time I went out to the bar and met this kind of cat, so I'm just kidding. But they go into a relationship together because somehow the protagonist, Bekim, feels that affection and love from someone like the cat, who couldn't be more appalled by everything that Bekim is, somehow means more than love that you can get, let's say, from a friend or from a parent or from a child, because you have to prove this love wrong in a way, that you have to fight for it and to be worthy of it, because Bekim wants the cat to believe that he's not just a copy of this view that often people have about immigrants, that they are coming in the country to abuse the system or something like this. And this was the discussion in Finland for a very long time, when people had to flee their homes and settle in Finland.
You and your family, because I know this is a reflection of your autobiography as well.
Yeah, in a way, I mean, these emotions are very familiar to me that I write about in this book, but I'm not crazy yet, so I haven't met a human-like cat in a gay bar, but I'm hoping that one day I will. I will live the book.
I think a lot of people will now feel the challenge.
Yeah.
They have to create. So I'm sure AI can produce that. We've been talking about AI quite a lot. I know we're going to read from that as well, but let's just give a little bit more background for this novel, because this Bekim is, as you say, he has a difficult life, but he is an immigrant. So he's the son of Emine and her husband, and there's a brother, I think, as well.
Yeah.
And they come, as your family did, they came from Kosovo. They are speaking Albanian. They then enter this society where they're speaking Finnish, in your case, Swedish and Finnish. And they, in his particular issues, of course, he is not just an immigrant from a war-torn country. He's gay and he's Muslim. So he has a long catalogue of potential abuse, if you like, prejudice. And
Yeah, I mean,
he's very lonely and isolated.
yeah, and regarding his religious background, I mean, it's not really written about in the book. He's quite like nonchalant about it, in a way.
It's assumed.
Yeah, it's assumed. Yeah, it's an assumed thing, and so all these things have led him to be almost like terrified of the outside world, and he's actually one of those people who are comfortable around dangerous situations. He's attracted to like being hurt because that's a space that feels cozy to him in a way, and I think that one can also become dependent on their past trauma,
Yes.
because you can hide behind them and always say that, oh, this particular thing is much more difficult to me than to other people because I have experienced all this weight, all this trauma of the past. So although the trauma has led him to be afraid of the outside world, it's like a protective shell in a way too, and then the cat comes in and basically breaks everything that Bekim has built in his short life. And I want to continue this argument by saying something about the beginning of the story, about a snake. The protagonist, Bekim, is extremely afraid of snakes. He has a phobia of snakes. But the novel starts with him going to the pet store and buying the biggest snake that they have, this really massive boa constrictor that's over 2 meters.
I tell you now, I have a phobia of snakes, so
Yeah.
let's
Me
not talk
too,
about them
me
anymore.
too.
I can't even talk about them.
Yeah.
That's why I'm concentrating on the cat.
Yeah, and so he gets this snake, and this snake.
Okay, keep going.
And so this snake, in a way, he. Should I continue about different subjects?
Let's talk about the cat.
Let's talk about the cat. Let's forget about the snake. But
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I see the point of the snake. I do.
Yeah.
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 No, I still know what that is. But thank you. But the reason you chose a cat, and this is a cat, and you can see there's this wonderful male-looking cat there, dressed really beautifully. And the cat takes on all kinds of different roles. I'm going to use that term, magical realism, however much people don't like hearing it these days, but this is what you are doing. You're writing a surreal, a fantastic sort of almost like Master and Margarita type book with a cat and, I've got to say, a snake as protagonists. And you have all these really fantastical things happen to your characters. So this, I imagine, as this was your first book and you've gone on to use this kind of method, if you like, of writing for all the other books, this is something you felt very strongly, very early on, was a good way to look at your topics.
Yeah, I mean,
to look at your issues, if you like.
I'm going to answer this question by going way, way back in my childhood. Growing up, we didn't have a lot of options regarding, for example, hobbies or everything. We were quite a poor family, and the general atmosphere in my home was very tense. It was very sad because we had left Kosovo without wanting to, and it's a different thing to have to escape where you come from than to do it by choice. And this is something that is not always understood quite clearly. Like, my family did not want to leave. They had it very well in Kosovo, but they had to leave. And we came to Finland at a very young age. I picked up this tendency to go to the local library, because when I was, I think, 9 or 10 years old, this beautiful, massive library that was really ahead of its time in Finland back then, in the early 2000s, opened its doors to public, and there were like computers there, books, audio books, access to internet, access to DVDs, to music, to all of this. And it was insane to me that it was free. All of it was like free of charge. I could go there as if into my own living room and like spend time there. So I started going to the library instead of going home after school. And then I just like, out of boredom or something, I started like picking up the books in the shelves and started reading them. And then I fell in love with stories like they were human beings almost to me. So this escapism was present in my life from really early on. And
Escapism?
So I think that it has a lot to do with my writing too, because when I have a book in the works, I feel so liberated, so free, because I can always leave the real world and make something out of nothing in the imaginary. And I don't have to worry about the rules and the constructions of the real world because they don't apply in my imaginary world. So when I finish a book, it's actually, time after time again, it has always proven to be also a sad thing. Obviously, I'm grateful that I've managed and finished another novel, but then I lose access to this, to the imaginary. And that's the most important place that I have in my life as a writer. So that's why I feel a bit claustrophobic, and I don't know where to go when I don't have a book, when I don't have the empty page where to go to. And I'm not one of those writers who can write, I'm very impulsive, as I said in the beginning. I have to have some sort of calling. The computer has to call my name for me to be able to do it. And so I forgot about your question.
No, but it's all good. It's all wonderful.
But I became a writer because throughout my life, I've been treated in ways that have felt unjust, even as a small child. I was talking about the curse of low expectations that I think a lot of teachers, a lot of adults in my lives had towards me, because I come from a war-torn country, and people assume that my shoulders are pressed by all this trauma, all this violence, all this death that is happening in my country. So I cannot, as if I couldn't cope with all of that. But in my mind, all the cultures, the languages, the religions, the traditions that I grew up with, they form a beautiful universe, and there wasn't any contradiction, but other people assumed that there was some sort of collision between all these worlds. And I hate to disappoint people when I say
you're okay.
Yeah,
you're okay.
I'm fine. I'm here. I'm breathing. Chill, relax. But
But I imagine that's true.
But my writing comes from me having something to say about the world. There needs to be something that bothers me about people, about our societies, about politics, about whatnot. And there's the match, there's the ignition. I need to have that because I just can't force it.
Do you think that, there are two things I want to ask about what you've just been saying. One is about the language you write in, which you've written in Finnish from the very beginning, but you also speak Albanian, and you're speaking English, and I know you learnt German and Swedish as well. Where does language fit into this complex world of yours? Is it a unified whole as well, in the same way that you describe your personality?
Between some of the languages, I don't even have to think about it. I can switch between Finnish and Albanian, for example, like a light switch. I just go from one language to the other. But with Swedish, German, and English, of course, I have to think about my words more and how to phrase my sentences. And when you speak in a language that is not your mother tongue or one of your mother tongues, it's it's so interesting that sometimes, you are just unable to forgive yourself when you make a mistake, and then you try to say the same thing, like going in circles, and you just don't remember a single word. And it happens to me a lot, and it's funny, but I think all the languages that have been present in my life have influenced my writing quite a lot, because these languages are very different from one another. I mean, Swedish and German and English, they are languages that if you know one, the system is kind of familiar in a way, because they are Indo-European languages and they have these certain structures are familiar. But then with Finnish, because Finnish is like a new, it has a completely different system. It doesn't resonate with Swedish or German. And also Albanian is an isolate language. So it's in its own group of Albanian languages, and the only language in this language group is the Albanian language. So,
yes. Lucky you. But it actually, I think it changes your brain and your perception when you have all these different languages. I mean, I feel very proud of being able to speak languages, and I know it informs my life, my work, my thinking, everything.
Yeah, I think so too. Although it's very hard to think about, because the relationship that you have with different languages, because it all comes so automatic to you. So it's not like we go to bed at night thinking that,
tonight I'll think in German.
Tonight I'll think in German, or tonight I'll think of my relationship with the Finnish language or the Albanian.
And I'll wake up in the morning and I'll know.
And I will provide for an answer. Because sometimes, I'm asked questions like, what does Albanian mean to you? And I'm just like, what? I don't know.
I won't ask you that one.
Yeah.
I will ask you, though, to read a little bit, and then we'll continue the conversation afterwards. So you're going to read a bit of the Finnish?
The Finnish, and then I'm going to read...
And that's in German?
That's in German, but then
so you don't want to read that one?
I'm going to hold the book because it looks better.
It looks better.
I forgot
Actually, it's so right. When you read from a phone, it still looks really rude.
Yeah.
He's
so
going to be doing
I'm going to read
emails.
in Finnish for just a minute, and then I'm going to switch to English. And then I think you're able to follow the English one through the screen. This is a section where the protagonist meets the homophobic cat in the gay bar. Tapasin kissan baarissa, eikä se ollut mikä tahansa kissa, joka piti leluhiiristä tai kiipeilypuista tai höyhen huiskuista. Ei alkuunkaan, vaan täysin toisenlainen kuin kissat, joita olin tavannut. Huomasin kissan tanssilattian tuolla puolen jossakin 2 baaritiskin ja muutamien selkien takana. Se loikki tyytyväisenä paikasta toiseen ja rupatteli tuttavilleen pitääkseen sosiaalisen elämänsä sujuvassa tasapainossa. En ollut koskaan nähnyt mitään niin hurmaavaa, mitään niin puoleensa vetävää. Se oli täydellinen, mustavalkoraidallinen kissa. Sen pehmeä turkki kiilsi baarin himmeiden valojen alla kuin juuri rasvattuna. Ja se seisoi tukevasti ja ryhdikkäästi vain 2 lihaksikkaan tassun varassa.
Sounded really good.
I should have brought an Albanian translation.
That would have been wonderful as well.
So, I met the cat in a bar, and he wasn't just any cat, the kind of cat that likes toy mice or climbing trees or feather dusters. Not at all, but entirely different from any cat I'd ever met. I noticed the cat across the dance floor, somewhere between 2 bar counters and behind a couple of turned backs. He loped contentedly from one place to the other, chatting to acquaintances in order to maintain a smooth, balanced social life. I had never seen anything so enchanting, so alluring. He was a perfect cat with black and white stripes. His soft fur gleamed in the dim lights of the bar as though it had just been greased, and he was standing firm and upright on his 2 muscular back legs. Then the cat noticed me. He started smiling at me, and I started smiling at him. Then he raised his front paw to the top button of his shirt, unbuttoned it, and began walking toward me. It wasn't long before he was standing in front of me in all his handsome glory. It was as if the cat had got my tongue, and at first I was unable to speak at all. The famous hits of yesteryear were playing in the background, and the cat clearly felt an affinity with the lyrics as he was singing along to songs by Tina Turner and Cher with such gusto that I thought he might burst with the force of his own memories. Give me a lifetime of promises and a world of dreams. Speak the language of love like you know what it means. And then, do you believe in life after love? I really don't think you're strong enough. The cat leaned his head back and grinned so widely that his chin formed 3 different chins. The expression on his face was as dramatic and fateful as that of an opera singer arriving at a climax. His eyes had creased shut. His mouth was wide open as though he were about to sneeze, and his knee bobbed in time with the chorus from Believe. One paw was clenched to his heart, and the other reached out as if to take a lost lover by the hand. After praising his extraordinary rendition, I looked him in the eyes and smiled. I know, he began. Nothing short of astonishing, isn't it?
Do you want to stop there? That sounds, we could listen to him for hours, but let's stop there. Let's talk a little bit more. We've got 10 minutes. My goodness, there's so much I want to ask you. You don't believe in happy endings, I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of all your novels now, generally. But there is still a change. There's a change that happens to the cat. Mm-hmm. Change happens to Bekim and to his mother. Mm-hmm. And I think what happens to his mother is rather wonderful, actually. Yeah. Maybe you can just explain, what the transformations are, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, in the novel, I think these characters finally manage to make peace with their past, and they find a sort of closure. But, I mean, throughout my life, I've been subjugated to people and fates who have lived lives that haven't been a celebration, and witnessed people, in their final moments, just being resentful and bitter and mad about the past and what had happened. And I just feel like in my writing I have to be faithful to also that experience, that not necessarily, you don't necessarily get this strength and stamina and vitality for your past trauma. You don't necessarily get over it. You don't necessarily, even by going to therapy or trying to heal in some other way, you don't necessarily get the luxury of fulfilling healing process. And I think we live in a time where we're almost encouraged to forgive our oppressors and to tell them that, to free them from their guilt and say them, oh well, it's okay. But it leaves the oppressed in a very confusing state, because when someone hurts you, you might have to live with that pain for the rest of your life. But the one who has done that to you is offered an atonement for free of charge. And they teach us that, oh, you shouldn't be bitter, you shouldn't be resentful, you shouldn't be looking at the past, because...
But are you bitter and resentful?
I'm the bitterest person you'll meet. I love holding a grudge. That's my favorite pastime.
I would actually say that there is, and I wondered how you feel about all those people who did hold prejudices and were really horrible to you, basically. And there's a kind of revenge. I do feel sometimes when I read your books that you're actually taking revenge in the most beautiful, wonderful, magical way.
Yeah, I don't want to encourage anyone to violence or anything like that, but I believe that a certain amount of bitterness can actually be a good thing too. It can sometimes, it's very human to be motivated by this feeling of well, one day the people who have hurt me will get what they deserve, people say that, oh, karma will find its way, and you know, and sometimes it's very frowned upon to like think about stuff like this, but I think it's very human, and it's like a survival technique also. It's for me like being angry is not necessarily what fuels my writing, but I can understand why, you know, people cling to the anger and don't want to forgive, and I wouldn't want to pressure anybody to do an act of forgiveness just because it's expected. By who is it expected?
Do you have former teachers or people who were horrible to you sort of when you were much younger coming up to you now and wanting to be your best friend?
How much time do we have?
Probably not enough to go into all of those individual stories.
But it's very interesting because I don't see my novels as like this vengeful.
You know, here you are though. You've won the Finlandia Prize twice, and you're an immigrant.
And I mean, I'm a very understanding person. I'm fun. I like. It's not that serious in the end, you know. We're all going to die anyway at one point. All the books that we have written will be vanished. Our anger and frustration will be vanished, and so
they won't. They will be.
But
they will continue.
The one thing that I want to say about it is that you know, the fictional form is a space where an author, an individual, cannot be touched in a way or interrupted. You can be, and you can say what you have to say without the resistance that you get, for example, if you were involved in politics or so. This is what caused me to write again and again. It's this I can like breathe in a different way inside a fictional universe, and because I feel like I've been interrupted so many times and throughout my life that maybe I got sick of it, and so I took it out in these novels. So maybe in that way I finally got my revenge, because
your closure.
My closure.
Right, to use that word. But to look very quickly at your other three novels, Bolla, Crossing, and A Cow Gives Birth at Night, they are also part of, I'm going to use the word odyssey, because in fact in Crossing, which is, I love Crossing. I think it's a really remarkable book. And it is about two young men who travel through Europe. They're from Albania.
Yeah.
And they travel across Europe trying on all these different identities. And again, there's that feeling, they're trying to find what's real all the time, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you're doing the same with each book in a way.
Yeah. In Crossing, it was really important to me because to explore like this sense of shame that people often have towards their like ethnicity or background, because the book like makes a point about being seen as less just because of.
Well, I've actually got a quote here from Buja, because he says, this is one of the two guys, they're friends and possibly lovers. Nobody has to remain the person they were born. We can put ourselves together like a jigsaw. That's the translation from David Haxton. And he's an androgynous narrator. And so this idea of putting yourself together, what is real and imagined, truth, fiction, and the fact that, in fact, this book was called, I think, a queer Tom. It was called like a
Tom Ripley.
Tom Ripley, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And there is definitely that element, isn't there, of him, the duplicity, the constant costume changing.
Yeah, I mean, the two protagonists in this novel, they carry a lot of trauma by the socialist regime in Albania falling apart, and Albania being presented in a very negative way in the media at that time. They were fleeing Albania for a better life in Italy and other European countries, and so these two young teenagers who are aged 13 and 14, and then later on in the book, the book follows decades of their lives.
You go backwards and forwards.
It goes back and forth. So they make this deal that when they get to Italy, because they want to flee Albania too, and when they get to Italy, they understand that it's better for us not to be associated with the negativity that is spoken about their home country, but choose different identities instead. So they go from place to place. And in every single city and in every single surrounding, they present themselves differently. They choose a new nationality, a new gender, a new faith. And so they play this identity game, and they always choose what benefits them most in every single situation. And I wanted to make a point about something that I said in the beginning of this conversation too, because when I told people, for example, when I was a child, that I'm from Kosovo, I was always met with sorry, but then, and it wasn't like curiosity, it was just sort of, oh, you're a war refugee, you must be going through so much. But then I remember we were visiting family members in Italy when I was a child while we were going to Kosovo, and then my cousin, I asked him if you've experienced like anything like this, because I had a lot of Swedish-speaking peers in my school, and when they said that, oh, my mother language is Swedish, and the teachers were like, oh, that's fantastic, it will help you so much here to know Swedish. And when I said I speak Albanian at home, they were just like, oh.
You poor thing.
You poor thing.
Yes.
That language, how useful can it be here? I mean, this was the joke. But then my cousin in Italy said that, why are you stupid enough to tell them that Albanian is your mother language? Just say it's Italian, or just say it's French, and then they will meet you with curiosity, and you will get in a different position. So I tried this once in a classroom, because in a different school, I said that, yes, I speak Italian as my mother language. That was a lie, of course, but then and it was true, and the teacher was immediately like, oh. And I think she said something like, I love Italy, I love pizza. Which is like...
You'd made it.
Yeah. I was just like, my Lord in heavens, help me. No, but then I got caught eventually, of course, because it was a small city I grew up in, but it was just a funny exploration to do. And in this book, there's so much I wanted to say in this book about identity and how we treat people based on where they come from. They don't get the same privileges, the rights. It's always dependent on your treatment is always dependent on what you are affiliated and associated with culturally, religiously, traditionally, and that's a really big issue, because you don't get the same opportunities than other people, and I think that's unfair.
You're also an incredibly funny writer. I mean, these are satires in the great tradition of satire, and burlesque and wonderful. They're incredibly inventive and very wonderful to read. Each of them, as I say, and just we have to finish, but each of them is about this experience of being an immigrant and changing identities, finding the identity, finding the languages that work for you, finding your own form of expression. I wonder whether you would ever write just a Finnish novel set in Finland with you as a Finnish writer.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought
and not
about
have
that.
to face any of these.
These expectations,
yes.
And then there was the questions of representation. You know, because I'm one of the few active Albanian writers who have their books out in the big languages that people can pick them up, and that's a really big issue, but let's not go into that.
Are you translated into Albanian?
My newest novel is, and I had a publisher there, but then it's a long story.
Okay, we haven't got time, sadly.
We have time, but what was the question again? I forgot it.
Well, just whether you'd write a Finnish...
I was at this party a couple of years ago, and my latest novel wasn't out yet, and this journalist asked me about the upcoming novel, and he asked me a question about, oh, so I heard that you have a new novel coming out next year. So is that novel also going to be a novel about like queer Balkan stuff, like all your other books? And I was just like, what queer
Balkan stuff? Yeah.
I'm just like, so if there's a writer who's who writes in Finnish about the Winter War, and by the way, they published thousands of novels in Finland about the Winter War, but with someone like me, because I write about my respective culture and about a world that is smaller and more marginalized, it creates this odd feeling that as if my world and the world I write about is somehow emptied faster than the history of Finland, like through fiction. But the history of Kosovo is rich and multifaceted. There's so many different faces, so many different fates, so many untold stories and histories. So my gaze towards Kosovo and towards the Balkans is similar to the gaze that German authors have towards Germany and Germany's history, because I don't see it as a small, insignificant country in Southeast Europe. To me, it's so much more than that. And to suggest something like this, so if I write about queer Balkan people, then you should ask Finnish writers too, if they write about straight people in Finland. It's only fair to ask them, is your next book is also going to be about straight people in Finland? So
next time I interview a Finnish writer, I will definitely ask that question.
Please do.
I will. I promise you,
and
I will.
Please report back to me what they said.
Pajtim Statovci, what a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So now we have a quick turnaround. We leave Finland and go to our home country. Change. Okay, I think it's time to talk again.